Jesus. And so obviously, naturally, they want to guard me and protect me as their brother. And so they say, you're getting on that or we're going to beat you up like here in the middle of Six Flags. And so we go, right? We go get in line. And the whole time, like, my heart is really like, I'm like beating out of my chest. And then we get our point in line. And like my mouth is getting dry. And I'm starting to sweat. And I'm like holding my arms. And then we sit in the seat. And you pull the thing down, you know, like you got to stay strapped in. And then you take the seatbelt and you plug it in. And so it's my brother Matthew. He's here. Matthew is here. And he's locked in, right? Like he's ready to go. Like he's said his prayers and he's ready to meet Jesus. And I am here. And I am locked in. And my eyes are closed. And I'm sweating. And my mouth is dry. And I'm hating every second. And my brother Micah, like y'all don't know Micah. But Micah is the guy who pushes everything to an 11. Like it is going to go and it's going to go hard. And so Micah locks in, right? And he's starting to be like, hey, Mark, how you feeling? Hey, you having a good time? Well, man, you do have a will, right? Like if you die on this, your kids are going to be okay, right? Like every bad scenario in the world is playing through my head because of Micah sitting beside me. And so the thing starts to go 3, 2, 1. You know, and like we're going up. Like some of you are hearing that and you're having anxiety with me right now. And so we get to the top and inevitably, like they're going to mess with your mind now. Like they get to the top and they just leave you there for a second. And you hear them on the intercom. You are a bajillion feet above the planet Mars, you know, and like you're looking down and like you see death calling your name. And then my brother Micah, again, like I'm here in the middle. He's here. He reaches over to my strap, to my locked-in buckle that's keeping me alive. It is my lifeline. And he reaches over and he's like, hey, what would you do if I beep? And popped it open when we are a bajillion feet in the air. Y'all, real talk, like I could have ripped his throat out and thrown it down to the concrete. I was so angry and so afraid in that moment. I knew the only reason I'm on this ride, man, the only reason I'm here is because of you. You're a terrible brother, and you are going to meet Satan when you die. You know, like I'm like getting after it in the moment. But check it. The only reason, and yes, I lived, obviously. I'm here. I lived to tell about it. I may have gotten sick off the ride, but that's not here nor there. I was influenced by my brothers to do something I never, ever, ever would have done by myself. Because they had influence in my life, they got put in a position of leadership. And so I want you to catch me right now, every single eye. This is a room filled with leaders. You who feel like, man, I have never led anyone in my life. I have never stepped on a sports team, been a captain. I have never been the smartest kid in the class. I have never won a popularity contest. Yes, you and you and you and you are leaders. Why? Because I have a little girl who's in 2nd grade. And when she walks in here, you know what each and every single one of you have on her? Influence. She looks at you and she wants to be like you. Because, man, you are middle schoolers, man. You guys have massive influence on every little kid over there right now. And therefore, you have leadership. And what you do with that leadership, maybe you can lead people like Nemo's buddies, and they're like, hey, no big deal. Go touch the butt. And Nemo's like, I'll show you, I'll touch the butt. You know, and he like goes off and does it. Maybe you've been leading people that way with your influence. Or maybe you leave today. Catch me. Maybe you leave today and God speaks to your soul and says, dude, I've given you so much potential and leadership, young men, young warriors, young ladies. I have given you so much influence. What if you used it to lead people toward me? You see, that's where we're going today. That is what God is putting in us today, Hebron Middle School. Is that our relationships matter. Who we are in the midst of our relationships, it matters to God, man. It matters to God. One verse today, that's it. Just one. And then one big idea. Here's our verse. The righteous choose their friends carefully. Man, the righteous choose their friends carefully. But the way of the wicked leads them astray. People who love Jesus, dude, who want to be like the Lord, who want God's best for their life. Students, catch me. They choose their friends carefully. But the way of the wicked leads them where? Leads them astray. Here's the big idea for today. Don't miss this. If you're taking notes, write it down. It is impossible. It is what? Impossible. That means there is no chance. There is no chance. It is impossible to live the right life when you have the what? The wrong friends. In your life today, there are some of you, by God's grace, you're going to leave here and you're going to ask yourself some hard questions. Like, are the people who are sitting by you right now the people who you should be sitting with? Are the people who you spend your time with the people that you should be pouring your life into and being influenced by? Because it's impossible, man. It's impossible to be the best version of you when you have the wrong friends in your life. In my life, listen, I want you to hear this. This is really good, man. This is going to challenge some of you. In my life, Mr. McMinn's life, anytime I look backward, like I'm creeping up on kind of like the middle age part of my life. Anytime I look backward in my life where things were good, man, where I was walking with Jesus, or, hey, I mean, I'm just accomplishing some big stuff. Like some of you, you want to get a certain grade. You want to end with a certain GPA. Others of you, you're asking God, you're believing like, dude, from a sports perspective, these are the goals that I have. Anytime that I have accomplished those things in my life, because I've had a few sports things that are pretty cool to talk about. Anytime I see those, it's because I was surrounded by people who wanted the exact same thing. We were all chasing it together. And then on the flip side, catch this, don't miss this. Anytime in my life, young men, anytime in your life that you are not accomplishing anything significant, anytime your life is kind of like being defined by mediocrity, it's because, young men, dude, you're surrounded by people who are also just valuing mediocrity, man. Like, we're just going with the flow. We're just here. We're just taking up seat and we're just breathing air. And the tension is this. The tension is this. We are called to be the light of the world, yes? Like Jesus says, like, hey, go, spread the good news. Be the light of the world. And yet, Scripture also teaches us bad company corrupts what? Good character. And so how do we live with both? How do we say, I'm going to be the light of the world. I'm going to be the good news. And yet, if I get around people with bad character, it's going to corrupt me. Jesus tells us this. Hey, catch this. You got to do both. You and me, we have to be in both. But, and here's the big thing today, is that while God commands us and calls us to walk with all people and be good news, we do not do so, don't miss this, with the same amount of influence and time. We do not do it with the same amount of influence and time. So what do you see here? Two circles. How are those circles? What is their relationship? One's big, one's small. One is inside of, one is outside of. So I want you to look at the life of Jesus. You guys have been hanging out in Christian school for a minute, so you know about this guy named Jesus. He has some disciples, correct? Yeah, there are 12 of them. Now, are all those 12, they come from different backgrounds, right? Like some of them are brothers, some of them are tax collectors, doctor, like they all come from these different spaces. And yet, let's pretend like this big circle here is Jesus's 12. These are his boys. This is the team. And yet, we have an inner circle. Anybody know Jesus' inner circle? Yeah. Who inside of the disciples, though? If this is the disciples, who is that inner circle? Peter, James, John. These are Jesus's guys, man. Those are his boys. That is the crew. Those are the guys who, when he is in a moment where he is feeling it, where the weight of life is heavy, dude, he's looking at them, young ladies, he's looking at them and saying, hey, I need your voice in my life. I need your encouragement. I need your influence in my life. And so we see in the life of Jesus, while we are good news to all people, that bad company corrupts good character. And so not everyone gets the same influence. Not everyone gets the same time, according to Jesus. In fact, I want you to catch this. There are times where Jesus does miracles, yeah? Like Jesus does some incredible stuff in his ministry. And there are these times where Jesus heals someone, where he does these things that cause us to pause. And the people that he does it to, like imagine that was you, right? Imagine the person that you love the most, your mom, your dad, your sibling, your best friend. They're going through something just terrible, dude. And Jesus himself shows up, steps into that mess, and he solves it. Would you not want to go spend time with him? Dude, every single one of us, we're like, forget math class. Like math class just became totally unimportant. I'm going to spend time with Jesus. And yet, don't miss this. Jesus, when someone wants to get in the inner circle, Jesus tells them no. And Jesus walks away. There are some of you today, listen, there are some of you today that what is keeping you from having the right people at your center, the right inner circle friends, is, dude, we just got to get better at saying no. We have to get better at our lives at saying, this is a stop sign. Not because you are bad, not because you're going to hurt me, but because, listen, catch this. If I let you in the inner circle, if I give you my time and I lend my ear to what you are saying, then that means somebody else can't get that time. I want you to catch this. Real story, real life, right? So I have the opportunity to spend, God's grace, hopefully years and years and years of my life standing with you all and future students of Hebron. And that would be such a grace of the Lord. But I get to spend years of my life. You know how close that was to almost not happening? I had a bunch of other things that were knocking on my door saying, hey man, come spend time with us. Come give your life to this. And I want you to hear this. They were not bad things. They weren't bad. It wasn't like somebody being like, hey dude, come deal drugs. Hey dude, like it wasn't any of that. It was stuff that was good. And there's some of you right now, you're sitting in your seat and you have said yes. You got in a habit of saying yes to things that are not bad. Like they're good. But I want you to catch this. When you say yes to something, it gets put in your hand. It becomes an opportunity in your life and you close your fist around it. How much more gets to fit in your hand? Nothing. Because you've said yes. And what Jesus is telling us here, man, is in your relationships, if you say yes to the wrong things, if you say yes to things that are not his best for your life, you won't be able to say yes when he puts the right thing there. There's some people in our lives that, dude, we've just said yes to. They kind of fit in this inner circle. And maybe today, God is like, dude, it's impossible for you to walk with me. It's impossible for you to be all I've intended you to be. It's impossible for you to be the best version of you because you've said yes in your inner circle to the wrong voices. You're like Nemo, man. You're hearing people say, you can't do that. Nemo, go do it. And peer pressure has found its way into your mind and your heart and your soul. And today God is like, dude, I've got more for you, man. I've got more for you, young lady. I have more for your life. I want you to see this. If you're taking notes, man, this is a really good one, dude. God's challenged my heart so many times in my life with this. Don't miss this. If we don't live by priorities, students, write this down. If you do not live by priorities, meaning what's important. And side note, it's not what you think's important. It's not what mom and dad think it's important. It's what God, author, creator says, hey, like, this is kind of important. You want to catch this. If we don't live by priorities, we will live by other people's what? Pressure. Have you ever felt pressure? I mean, for real. Like, dude, if you haven't felt pressure, like, I'm just being real, you're not doing it right. Anytime you walk into a room, you are immediately feeling pressure. Mr. Reed, will you keep me on time? Like, give me a 5-minute when we're there. Where we walk into a room and we feel pressure to be a certain thing. Like, dude, if you have not felt it today, it's because you've become numb to it. Because every time you walk in a room, students, you feel pressure to look a certain way, to weigh a certain weight, to gentlemen, to physically begin to present a certain way. You feel pressure to have a certain GPA and achieve certain things academically. When you get on the sports field, on the court, in the ring, you feel a certain pressure because, guess what? Everyone's watching. I'm watching you. I'm looking at you. And all of you are looking at you. And that's called pressure. And if you do not have your priorities straight, guess what you're going to do? You're going to fold like Nemo. You are going to fold under the pressure. And what God is saying to you today is, dude, hear my heart for you as your father and have priorities that come from me. Don't let the pressures of everybody else cause you to fold. So here's my question. Let's go back to our circle. What happens? Listen, because all of you will or have experienced this in your life, right? Like Jesus experienced this, so we know you're going to. What happens when people who are in this inner circle, like we started off with the same goals, the same passions, the same belief and hope and dreams. We started off saying, dude, King Jesus, man, we're chasing him together. And then somebody kind of like, if this is our circle, somebody does this a little bit. And then, like time goes by and we start. What do we do when someone takes a step from the inner circle and they start shifting the priorities of the group? So I told you I got to play sports. Like I graduated from Providence Christian, and yes, you can boo. Providence Christian. And so I honestly, I loved playing sports there. I loved being a student there. God really grew my faith. That's why I'm so zealous and passionate for Christian school. But there, among a few things, I got to play soccer. And this particular time, the beginning of this was my junior year. And all of us who had like a real passion for not only soccer, not only our future, but for the team, we got together and had a players-only meeting. And we said, hey, we've got a whole 7 months, man, 30 days, like 200 plus days. And we are going to squeeze every bit of that, every single bit of it out. And we are going to work harder than any other team in the state. We are going to do cross country. We are going to hold each other to a certain diet. We're going to eat certain foods. We're going to do certain cardio. We're going to lift these weights. We are going to push as hard as we can, and we're all committing to it. And now here's what happened, right? Like we start off week number 1, 100%. Everybody's in, dude. Like we are pumped up. Let's get it. And then like week number 2, we're still there, but like emotionally not quite as much. And then a month later, the stuff that was like, yeah, baby, we're getting it, became like, dude, this is real grind. Like, this is not fun anymore. Like, and is it really that big of a deal if we lose? Like, if we lose a game, like, we still win state after losing. Like, we don't have to go undefeated. What happens when somebody, their priorities start to slip? That their values, their intimacy with Jesus starts to take a step back in their relationships. How do we treat them? If that's someone who's in our inner circle. Students, I want you to catch me. Let's look at the life of Jesus. When Jesus, ultimately, he is heading toward the cross. He is heading toward Golgotha. He is going to take on your sin and your sin and your sin and my sin. And Peter, his boy, inner circle, Peter, looks at him and says, no, this cannot happen. You know what Jesus says to him? Get behind me, Satan. He looks at his inner circle boy and says, you are distracting me. You're losing focus on who you are, and you're losing focus of where we are going together. We see an inner circle changing. what we see in Jesus is that you should do a few things. Number one is you look at that person like today, some of you need to leave and you need to hear me because this needs to become who we are as Hebron. That some of you need to look at each other and say, hey, I love you and you have pushed the boundaries of who we are. And because I love you, because we love you as your close friends, we need you to kind of come back. We need to call what is sin, sin. We need to call what break God's heart not okay. And because we love you and because we were here together, we know that you love Jesus too. And so I need you to come back. And if they say no, and by the way, side note, can we just be real? I know that's hard. But in the same way you have to say no, you also have to learn to say yes. And so if they look at you and they're like, nah, dude, I'm good. Like, she's really fine, and I've been chasing her for a hot minute, and so I'm good. Blessings to you. Then here's what you got to do. You have to allow the distance to happen. You have to stop spending as much time with that person. You have to stop hitting them on Snapchat and sending them stuff on TikTok. You have to allow the distance to happen, young men, young ladies. You have to allow it. Because if you don't, it changes you. Let's go back. Leadership is influence, right? And so if they are around you, they are influencing you. And they are changing your values. And you don't even know it. You are being changed in and amongst who you spend your time with. Like, I remember when I got super serious about my career and my life and what I was chasing in sports. Like, some of you guys know, like, one of my hobbies, and this is weird, I know, but, like, I love to do jujitsu and, like, MMA, like, UFC, right? Like, it's just weird. I know, it's weird. But, like, that's my thing. And when I started taking that super, super serious, I knew I've got to be in a room where I am the least proficient, like, I'm the least good, man. I'm going to step in that room, and I'm going to get worked. I'm going to get my face cracked up, beaten in. If that happens, then guess what? I'm in the right room. Because I'm surrounded by people who are better than me. They are working harder than me. They've been doing this longer than me. And they are willing to sacrifice more than me. Because if I'm in that room, I'm going to start being influenced by them. And I am going to be changed just by breathing the same air as they are. But in the same way, if I want those things, if I feel God has called me to those things, and I keep hanging with the wrong people, and the wrong people are my inner circle friends, it becomes what? Impossible to please God if you have the what? Wrong friends. It becomes impossible. We create barriers for ourselves. I want you to catch this here. When our inner circle friends are God first, these are a few things. I'm not going to read the text to you, but this is Jesus speaking. He's giving a sermon, kind of like I'm giving to you. He's teaching a large audience of people. And he says in Matthew 6 that you and me, young students, 6th grade, 7th grade, who's not here, but we'll talk to him, 8th grade, that you are going to feel anxiety. Have you ever heard Miss Tanner, Dr. Tanner, talk about that? Have you ever heard Miss Long talk about anxiety? Have you ever felt anxiety in your soul, in your gut? When you know you got to go into a moment, right? And this moment feels not really big, like overwhelmingly monstrous big. And you feel it in your gut like, dude, nope, ain't happening. What Jesus tells us in Matthew 6 is that when you have the right friends, when you are walking with people who are walking with God, your Father, it actually decreases our negative emotions. It decreases and washes out our anxiety. Did you catch that? Some of you need to hear that today and tomorrow, and when you're in high school and when you're in college and when you are married. You need to be reminded when anxiety wells up, bring the right people in your life. Secondly, it increases my capacity for everything else. Jesus tells us, like, this is a verse I literally have on my wrist. Seek first his kingdom, students. Seek hard after Jesus and what matters to him. And when you do, guess what? Jesus makes a promise. He says, I will care for everything else. Like that pressure that you feel with school, guess what, dude? Your first thing, you need to seek Jesus. That pressure you feel about a dating relationship and a friend relationship and all these if you seek Jesus, like, seek me and I'll take care of all that. Some of you today, all the barriers in your life, it's just because, dude, you got the wrong friends and you're not seeking Jesus together. Jesus says it increases your capacity for everything else. And finally, Matthew 6:34, it gives me the ability to be my best. When I have the right friends and the right friends are walking toward Jesus, we are able together to experience God's best in our life. How many of you want God's best? Yeah, dude, like you better be raising your hand. God, creator, he knows how you work and he knows how I work. Therefore, only he can tell us what his best is. And he says, dude, if you want it, you have to seek me. Now, I want you to read this because for some of you, this is going to well up in your soul. This can lead us to a point of tears, man, because it is so deeply true. In your life, listen, in your life, like literally, some of you are going to deal with this in the next 15, 30, 1 hour of your life. Satan himself will often try to minimize the cost of sin ahead of time. Have you ever felt when you are getting ready to sin, this is no big deal? And sure, what if it happens? Like I cheat on a quiz, I cheat on a test, I cheat on homework, I do this, I do that. Like I know it's wrong, but I mean, really, like what's the worst that can happen? And how likely am I to get, is it that I'm going to get caught? Like it's probably not that likely. And you know what? It's just not a big deal. Like he did it and so what? Satan is looking at you and he's whispering in your ear, young man, young lady, who cares? Dude, not only is everybody doing it, so what if you even get caught? Like, it's an infraction. What's an infraction? It's no big deal. Satan will often try to minimize the cost of sin ahead of time. But do not, because I love you, do not miss this. He will maximize. You know what maximize means? It means he will try to take it and drive it as hard as he can against you. He will bring the full weight of the cost of sin after the fact. After you have said yes to what he said was no big deal, he's then going to look at you and say, gotcha. And then he's going to bring the weight, man. The hammer is going to come on your head. It is what Adam and Eve fell for. It is the story of humanity that we fall and we fall hard after the fact because we believe sin's no big deal, man. We get in with the wrong people and we start believing the wrong things, even if they're just little changes. And then, dude, like Satan comes in, he's like, whap, gotcha. And it changes everything in our lives. Funny story. Let's go back to this for a minute. So I got the chance, I did my undergrad in Anderson, South Carolina. I played soccer there. Man, I loved AU. It's where I met my wife. Smoke show, where you at? Right back over here, man. My wife is God's gift to me. But we won't go there. We'll save that for when you're in high school. So she is God's gift to me. And yeah, you can all look at her and be like, yeah, dude, like she's way more fine than you are. I know, like I got it. But I was dating this girl named Andrea. And by dating, I mean like I kind of wanted to date her and she was kind of deciding if I was worth her time. And so we are in Anderson, South Carolina, which is kind of like how Decula is to Atlanta, okay? Like we all say we live in Atlanta, but no, you live in Decula. Like it's not the same thing. So that's how Anderson is to Greenville. And so I was like, hey, I'm going to take you, sweet Andrea, and we are going to go downtown Greenville. I'm going to take you to a fine night of pizza, and it's going to be so good. You know, and some of you are like, yeah, dude, that's a good date. When you get older, that's not a good date. Don't do that. But I thought it was a good date. And so I want you to catch this. This is funny. So I'm going to pick her up in my car. And I didn't come from money. I'm driving like a 92, like 1992, back when the dinosaurs walked around. I'm driving a 1992 Toyota Camry to pick up this girl. And guys, like you will do this. You should do this. Before you go on a date, clean your car out. You know, like in the same way that like, don't go to school without putting on deodorant because, by the way, you smell bad. You know, like I have 7th graders come in my room and they leave and I'm like, they'll smell bad, man. Wear deodorant. God loves you. Wear deodorant. And so I was cleaning out the car before the date. And part of that was the glove box. You know what a glove box is? Like you have the driver's seat. That's me driving. And so beside me in the passenger seat in the front is like you open the handle and that's where your parents keep like secret stuff, like it's where they keep their candy that they don't want you to get into. And so that's what I have. And what I didn't realize is my glove box was kind of like janky. Like it didn't work. And I went to like open it, and I pulled it, and it didn't open, and I was like, that's weird. And I pulled it, and because I'm like Hulk strong, man, like look at me, I'm Hulk strong. And so as I pulled it, I broke it. And I'm like, bro, that's where she's gonna sit. Like she can't sit in front of a broken glove box. Like this ain't. So here's what I did, and you can all judge me. I judge me. My wife is about to judge me. Is that I took a bunch of note cards, right? And I took some super glue. And I super glued a bunch of note cards together. And then, get ready to judge, I took the note cards and like the hook that the latch would hit. And I put super glue here and super glue here and note cards in the middle. And I super glued it and I held it with all my Hulk strength. And then I let go and I prayed, God, please, because you love me and this girl is fine, please let this work. And then I let go and it worked. And I was like, Jesus, man, you're so good. Like, you are so good. You care about what I care about. Inner circle friends, man. And so I go away. The next day I go to her dorm. I go to pick her up. We head toward Greenville and I hit like a bump in the road, like a pothole in the road, right? And guess what happened? The glove box opens up and I feel so secure and proud of myself. No, I felt like a total moron, dude. Like I felt so incredibly embarrassed. I felt ridiculous. In my mind, I minimized it, right? Like I can fix this with some note cards, super glue, no big deal. And yet, she left that date and said, bro, don't ever call me again. You're kind of weird. And she may have been right. But she was like very clear. This is over with. And Satan will maximize the cost, man. What you think is no big deal, after the fact, he will bring it on you. So here's what I want you to see. Listen, as we circle, as we end, every eye. Because this is where we come before Jesus together and we do it well. We honor him with our time and our heart and our focus. Some of you today, you need to leave. Listen, you need to leave. You need to go to third period, second period, fifth period. You need to go home. And you just kind of need to marinate. You know, like you know what a crock pot is? Crock pot, right? Like mom's making roast and she puts it in there and she puts in the juices and stuff and it looks kind of gross, but it smells good. And she leaves it there for hours and hours so that at the end of the day, she started in the morning, but now like dinner time is good. That like a crock pot, man, you need to just sit and simmer and marinate on what you've heard today. And some of you need to ask, hey dude, who I want to be in your academics, in your athletics, in your personal life, in your private life, but most importantly, in your relationship with Jesus, students, in your relationship with Jesus. You need to ask, do I have the right inner circle friends? And some of you, like I'll be real with you, like this is a conversation I'm having with my kids of like, hey dude, are you the best version of you right now? Well, no. Well, then who are your friends? You are a reflection of your friends. It is impossible to please God. It is impossible to do what's right when you have the wrong friends. And so you need to start looking at your friends. There are others of you. Here's what you need to do. Young men, catch me. You need to ask yourself. Dude, am I a friend worth having? Like, would anybody look at the circle and say, dude, that's somebody who I want in my inner circle? And if not, guess what? We need to start doing some work. We need to get to work. Young men, we need to get to work. God has called us to be warriors. We need to get to work. Young ladies, we need to get to work. Finally, there are others of you. Listen, there are others of you that by God's grace, man, by God's grace, your inner circle, there are friends who are following Jesus hard, and you are chasing big things together. And you need to leave here, and you just need to be encouraged. You need to be reminded, you're doing well. You're doing well. You're honoring God with your best. So as we close, here's what I want. Most times when we pray, right? Like we close our eyes and we bow our head. You know, like sometimes we'll fold our hands if we want to do like the little kid thing. We're not going to do that. But here's what we are going to do. I put this prayer up here, and if your eyes are kind of bad, you can catch it up here. But we're going to all recite this. We're going to say this together. Because there are some of you, you want to say this. You want to say it out loud, man. You want to say it with your gut. You want it to matter. And yet it's weird saying that in front of people. So we're all going to say it together. And then we're going to be done. Is that fair? We're going to hear our verse, Micah, and we're going to be heading on. But man, God's grace, God's mercy, his word matters. So all together, eyes open, we're going to say this. Read it with me. Father, you have created me for relationship. Help me to find the God-first friends who will influence me toward you and encourage me to be that for others. Give me the wisdom and the strength to guard my inner circle just as Jesus did. I give my current and my future relationships to you, my Creator and the Lord of my life. Amen. My prayer for you for the rest of the school year, students, listen, my prayer for you is that that would be true. That what we just all said together, that would be the truth that you live from. Yeah? Cool. So, come on up, brother. Thank you guys. Love you all. I'm proud of you.
All right.